Okay, so as I said, the benefit here is that you're able to see what every class I am doing and every code I ever written on this, because it's designed that it saves everything in variables. Okay, so of course you can find Python, you can find Java, you can find other things, but of course in our case we are talking about only about certain things in Python, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it means also if you download the code here, let's say if we created a code, let's say it's called main, so you can right click and you download, and you can open it in any of the Python IDEs that you have on your laptop, so it will work.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. So let's see. So as I said, okay, let's go back here. Okay, so Joy, two things we have. Okay, we have input and we have output. So input means that you ask the user to input some data, and you capture that data and store it in a variable. Do you know what the meaning of variable?
Yeah.
So the variable is actually as an area in the memory that you specify it, and you tell the computer, please put certain values in this place in the memory and give it a name. So our variable can be, let's say, number. Okay, we tell the computer through an instruction that we write in Python, please reserve a place in the memory, call it a number, and put some values inside. Does this make any sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So so we have two things in Python. We have input, we have output. Input, you ask the user to give an input from his side. The input can be string, can be character, can be an integer. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then the computer will save that input inside the memory. Okay, and we will go through that. Output means you ask the computer to print something to the screen. So that is done using the print command.
Okay.
Okay, so you see in front of the screen we have a print command. It will print enter text here. Okay, or you can also use it to print anything inside a variable. So if you say print x, it can be a variable, which means it is a space in the memory that have it can be a string, it can be a character, it can be an integer, or even a float, and it will print that value to the screen. So for us to know what's happening, most of the time we will use the print command to be able to know what's going on. Sometimes we don't know if the computer is really executing what we wanted it to do or not. So we will use a print. So we'll always, when we want to look inside what is inside the variables, we will ask him to do the print. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you know that we are able to write comments using this this format, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you know that there is certain rules to use when creating variable names. So the variable should be always sensible. It means it always makes sense. You are joining using a third.
Yeah, sorry, because I switched my device because earlier when I was preparing to join, my laptop was going through an update.
No problem. Okay, no problem. It's okay. It's fine. Okay. So what I want to say is that you always create variables with names that make sense. Okay, so that you are not confused of your code. Okay, so let's say you are creating a variable, for example, that store a temperature value. Okay, so your variable should, for example, be named as temperature. Okay, so that makes sense. When you look at it, then you understand, oh, this variable have a name that is used in storing temperature, for example. Okay, so always our variables should start with a letter, not a number. Okay, and we should never have spaces in between our variable name. Sometimes we need to create a variable that is containing that consists of two words, for example. So we can have a variable that's called student name. Okay, because also we have a student age. So if we have a student name, we cannot put space between student and name. So it has to be one word. Okay, but we are able to make things clear by putting underscore. So we are allowed to use underscore. Okay, Joy, can you follow me?
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. So okay, he is showing us here what is allowed and what is not allowed when we're using names for variables. So we cannot start, if you look at the bottom, we cannot start a variable name with a letter, sorry, with a number. Okay, and we also cannot use dashes, and we cannot use space here. Okay, so some space and one is not allowed. Okay. Okay. So okay, for the moment, we have let's talk about three data types: string, integer, and float. So a string is just a normal text that we have. An integer is actually just a number without any decimals. Okay. Float, we will use it if we are dealing with any number with a decimal. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So okay. Actually, we are able to convert from one type from one type to another, and we are able also to know the data types. So, for example, if we have a number, a variable called number1, and we put for it a values 5.456, like we have here, we are able to do a print in this method. So in this way, I mean, so if we print type and then we put in between the brackets number1, it will give us that it is a float or a real number. Okay. And also the same if we have one thing. So we are able to, as I said, if we have a float, we are able to convert from float to an integer. Do you know what will be the result if we convert from a float to integer?
No.
Okay. And so, okay, do you see the number in front on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, what is the number?
5.456.
Okay, perfect. So, what is the decimal part of the number?
5.4.
Okay, that's great. So, so integers is only any number without a decimal, right? So if we convert a float to an integer, you will lose all the decimal part, and you will only have the first number before the decimal. So if we convert the float to an integer, like what he is doing here, so what is he writing here is number integer equal integer, and then he put the variable called number1.
Okay.
Okay, so let me try to run something here for you. Okay, wait. And instead of only talking, let me see here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you understand why we need to use indents in Python? And you understand if we don't use indents, so you use a tab to do indenting. So let's say we have a number that is called 5.456, like that, and then we print type num. So we run. So what do you think? Can you see the result here?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a float, right? So, okay, what if we want to create a new variable and we want to convert it this time from, we convert the float variable, which is called num on line number 11. We want to convert it into an integer and then print it. So what do you think would be the results?
The number itself.
Okay, let's see. So do you see the output here?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So is that clear to you? Did you know before?
Yeah.
You know it before?
Yeah, the data types, like the integer would put in the first variable.
Okay, but you know the conversion before?
No.
Okay, so because, okay, so let me do something else. So since we are here before we return back to the slide. So because the conversions from one type to another is actually important, and you might need to use it. So the last thing, if you have a number and you want to convert it to a string, so you can do something like that. Sorry. So you use the word string, and then you put any integer or any float inside. It will convert that to a string. Let's try. So do you notice the difference here? Do you notice what we have done? So I use the function called string. I pass it a data type, okay, and I ask him to convert it to convert that data type to a string, and I store it inside a number, and I print the number. So the number here, he just printed as it is, 5.456. He just changed that to a string, and then he printed. Do you know, are we able to add strings?
Yeah.
So if I add, okay, good. We are able to add them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So if we have num1 equal 5 and num2 equal 6. So can I add both and put the result inside? So can I do that? Is that allowed? So do you see what I write on line number 16 here? Is it allowed?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, what do you think could be the result? So okay, the questions that I'm asking you, I'm not challenging you, okay, but I just want to sense what level of understanding that you have. And when I'm challenging your mind, actually what I'm saying to you, you will never forget it. Because if you are only listening, to what I'm saying, it will be hard for your brain to remember that. When you think about something, the neurons inside your brain will start functioning, because I'm challenging you with a question. Okay, so only your neurons will start to build links inside. Okay, so that will be a fixed memory. So so all the information now I'm giving to you, it is actually on it's kind of memory. It's called working memory. To move that information from the working memory to your permanent memory or permanent storage memory, then you have to practice it, okay? Not only now by questions, but by revising and by also doing exercises. If you do that, all the information I'm giving to you will be stored permanently, and then you are able to recall it back in the exam, okay? So I'm not just giving you questions for any other reason other than that, okay? So now, think with me, even if you give me a wrong answer, okay? What would be the result if I run the print command now?
11.
Okay, let's run and see.
Oh, okay.
Because, okay, so when I told you, can we add strings? Actually, no, we can never add strings. We can only add numbers. So string can be concatenated. It means that it can be grouped together, but it can never be added. You can never add a string. So only floats, only integers you can add. So now, see, so what can differentiate a number from a string, or a normal variable that is of type float or type integer from a string? Actually, this double quotation. So anything in Python between double quotation is a string. Okay, it means that it loses its ability to do any arithmetic operation on it. Okay, good. Okay, so if I want this to be a real numbers and I can make any arithmetic operation on it, so I remove the double quotation. Now, actually, if I run now, what can be the result? 11, like you said just now.
Okay.
So the only difference is I change it, I remove the double quotation. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I return back exactly the same. I want to show you something before we leave from here. Okay, so if I do like that, what would be the output? Do you see what I have done here on line number 16?
Yeah.
So what do you think can be the result?
5 space 6.
You are perfect. Okay, so now you're catching out. Okay, so actually it's correct. Okay. So that concept of putting a plus sign between two strings is actually you are going to add that strings and put them in one line, or on one, store them in one variable. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. That's good. So we go back here. So okay. Converting data types. Okay, we have looked into that. We also look into that. Okay. So you know about mathematical operators, right? The addition and subtraction, division and multiplication. I think that's clear to you. Or would you like to have some examples?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. So we have a practice question actually. So, okay, assign 50 to a variable, which we call it num1, multiply that number by 40.45, and store the solution in a variable called answer, and print only the integer part of the answer. So, yeah. Okay. So, did you see a print statement like that before?
Yeah.
So you know what will be the result.
Yeah.
And we talked just now that we can get the integer part of any float point or any decimal number by using this int, right? Int function, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can move on. Okay, just now also we talk about concatenation. It means that you group two strings together. Okay, so that is what he's trying to tell us here. So he can group two words in using a plus sign. We already talked about that. Okay. So assign your first name in a variable string 1 and your second name in a variable string 2 and combine both of the string with a space between them. We have done that part just now. Okay. Right? You still remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we talked about the output just now. So we are able to print anything to the screen using the print command. Did you use the input function before?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So I would say okay. So I would say okay. Let me see. So to get an input from the user, actually I use a function called input, okay, and I pass it a message that will appear on the screen, and then whatever the user passed to me, it will be actually stored in a variable called num. Or we can say input, but input is or we can say user input. We can say like that. This allow. Okay, and then I take whatever the user passed to me, I print it out. Okay.
Okay.
So let's see. Can we run and see? So he's telling me enter a number. So I will put 23, for example. I press enter, and then it will print out 23. So whatever I take from the user, I just print it. Okay. Of course, the remaining. Let me, to avoid the confusion, let me put that inside here. So if we run again, okay, let's say I put 4, it will output 4 only. Is that clear to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me think. What if I want the user only to put integers, not anything else? Can we do that?
Yeah.
So can we do that? So I get the input function and I put it in between the function that's called int. So whatever the user gives to me, I will convert it to an integer and then store it in a user input, and then I print it out. Okay, so if we put 2, if I put 2 here, print, it will print 2. There is nothing wrong with that. But what if I put a character? Like, well, tell me first, if I put it like that, will the code accept that from me if I put AS as an input?
No.
So actually, it will raise an exception. It means that it doesn't accept that. Why? Because I cannot convert AS to an integer. There is nothing that convert AS to integer. There is no number representation of AS to it cannot be converted to an integer. It's just a simple character. Okay, so I need to later we will learn how to avoid this error from happening, and how we always can ask the user. So what is happening here, that it halts all the execution of the program and it results in an error. But there is ways that we avoid this halting. So it means that there is ways we will learn to, if the user input, if we ask him to enter a number and he input a character, we are able to accept that from him, and then send him a message telling him, you already give us a character which is wrong, please input a number, without halting the execution of the program. Okay, so that's actually possible, but we will learn it later on. Okay. Okay. So I want to try one more thing before we close here. I will run one more time, and then I will enter 4.2. He also doesn't accept that from me. Okay, good. So, okay, we stop here, and yeah. So that's how we, so, okay, one more thing. In Python, the input function always return a string value, okay? So if it is a number, then you're supposed to change it to an integer or float. So how is that? So it means that anything that the user input, even if he puts a number like 5 or 2 or 4, it will be stored as a string. So it means that you cannot perform any arithmetic operation on it. Okay. So same here. Yes, the user input 45, but you are only able to print it. You cannot do any arithmetic operation before converting that 45 to actually an integer. Okay, so he's asking here, ask 2 numbers from the user and add both of the number and print the answer as a relevant message. So you see here, he's asking the user to input something, and he will convert that thing that the user input into a float and store it into number 1. Is that clear to you? Does this make any sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so the user input number 1 as a float, number 2 as a float. He then on the third line, he add these 2 floats and store it in answer, and then he print it on the last line. So we move on. Joy, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, let me see. Let me see here, please. So Joy, in this slide, actually, we will go fast through the function that is used to read text files. I assume that you did that as part of the exam in AS level, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So okay. So we actually have 3 modes that we are able to use with files: a read mode, a write mode, and append mode. So read, you're only able to get the data from a file. Write, you're able to overwrite what is inside the file. Append mode means that you're able to add data inside the file without overwriting whatever inside the file. Okay, the first step that we need to do is we need to open the file using that command. So we need to make sure that we have a file, and we need to input the correct file name, and then we need to use the correct mode for what we want the file to be done with. So R stands for a read mode. We have also W for the write mode, and we have append. Okay, so to be able to read the contents of the file, then we have a function called file.read. Okay, and then after we've done all the operations that we need to do with the file, we have to close it. Okay, so we open the file with whatever mode that we want. We read the content of the file and we save it to a variable called text, and then we have to close. Okay, not closing the file actually wastes the resources of the computer. Okay, so if you keep opening file without closing them, by time your program, if it is too big, it will hang and it will eat the resources of the computer, and it will, how to say, it will consume more memory than it should be, and at the end the computer program will hang. Okay. Okay, so that's how. So I created actually I created a text file that is called high score, and we can give it a try if you would like. So actually, I would say get us this here, and let's see. So okay, let me see. Are you following with me?
Yeah.
Do you see the output?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you guess what is stored in the file?
The output.
Yes, I know, but from what you see, can you try to guess what is the content of the file?
Names of people and their scores.
Okay, you are very smart. Okay, so actually, this is, can you see this is a file actually. Okay, that's what I stored in the file, and that what was read just now on the output.
Okay.
Okay, good. So actually, we only have 3 minutes remaining, because Zoom actually is having limitation of 45 minutes or 40 minutes of a meeting time. So it will close after 3 minutes. But let us finish this, and then we can summarize what we have done today.
Okay.
Okay. So again, did you notice what we have done here? The read actually read all the contents of the file, one shot, and store it in a variable. But actually, sometimes we need to use a function that we are able to read line by line. Okay, so because as you see the content of the file, we have a name and we have a score under it. So if we need to read the names only and not the scores, so we need to recognize what we are saving. So if we use read line, so we are able to differentiate between the lines that we are reading. So here we are able to open the high score text as a read only mode, and we are able to store the first line by doing this way. We store it in a variable called first line equal file.readLine. The second line, we will read it also by another call for the function called readLine. So the first one will read the student name. The second one will read the score of the student. And then we can print the first line and the second line of what we have read, and then we can close. So just to summarize what we have done here. So we have gone through the basics, and then we have we tried to go through the functions that is related to opening and closing files and reading the content of the files. We still have a long way to go if you decided to continue. Okay, and so see, if you want to write Python, you really need to practice. So if we are only talking about 1 hour and a half a week and you are not practicing, I don't think that you will get the results that you wish. You are a smart guy. I can see that. Okay. I mean, I've taught even working professionals before, and they don't grab. I mean, they ask more questions than you, and they don't seem to grab things so fast like you do. So what I see that you might be only missing, that you just need to practice. I know sometimes smart people are a little bit lazy, so they just depend on their smartness and they don't really give it a lot of time to practice things. But I think if you practice, then there is a hope that you can get a good score. Okay.
Okay.
So you see what you want to decide with Go Learn, and then let us see how we continue. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Then take care. See you then. Bye bye.
Okay, right. Thank you for your time, sir.
Okay. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.